We all know investing in your brand is important to achieve great results, but it's very hard to prove it. Since we can't improve what we can't see, marketers have had to beg leaders to trust them on this one. This is a new subject in marketing, so we like a benchmark. And this podcast is an intent to share benchmarks globally and learn together as a community. I'm Guta Tolmasquim, the CEO of Purple Metrics and host of this podcast. Purple Metrics is software that measures the hard to measure part of marketing, such as branding and its impact on consumer behavior. Brands activate Purple Metrics on their own channels, and the software surveys consumers every day to generate sentiment, behavior, and attributes metrics. Brands like The Key, Gringo, Conta Azul, Oya, and others love Purple Metrics for monitoring the results of their day-to-day marketing actions and using the data to create their communication strategies. For those who want to know more about Purple Metrics and start measuring your brand, check out our website, purplemetrics.com.br. Alex, thank you for joining us. Let
Yeah.
me introduce Alex. Every year, $200 billion is spent on digital ads in the US alone, and 47% is wasted. Alex started Purposely.ai to help progress oriented digital advertisers and their agencies reclaim that waste through better decisions and generative AI. Alex has led strategy for and executed campaigns with a diverse range of organizations, including Team USA during the Rio Olympics, Sierra Club,
Woo.
Google, Dolby Laboratories, NAACP, and Freedom to Marry, while at two prominent agencies, including one that directed Obama's online campaigns in 2008 and 12. Alex, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much, Guta. It's wonderful to be with you here, and I appreciate this opportunity. And yeah, just a little Brazil shout out there, right? Always fun.
Yeah, you know I'm from Rio, right?
Yes,
I do
that
live
was
in
the
São
one.
Paulo, but yeah,
Yeah, I didn't.
I'm in Rio right now.
Oh, wonderful. I need to go. I went down to the Olympics in 2016, but didn't make it to Rio. So yeah, it's high on my list.
Yeah, it should be. So you let me know and we'll be here together and I can show you around.
Wonderful.
Uh, so let's start with a little game.
Yeah.
Uh, how would you explain to Logan Roy from Succession what AI is?
I love Succession. It's probably my top show, so I love this question. Um, Interestingly, I 2 minutes before this chat started, I input this question into Chat GPT. I thought this might be an interesting exercise, and I'll read you a little bit of what it said. But I think it really missed an opportunity here for humor, right? I mean, it didn't pick up on the fact that Succession is really a dark comedy, and that's the way I watch that show. You know, a lot of people watch it, and it's a drama and a comedy, but I think it's better to watch it as a comedy than a drama.
I
Anyhow,
agree. And it's
what?
funny.
Oh, it's hilarious. If you watch it as a comedy, it's hilarious. If you take it too seriously, it's really dark.
Yeah, true. It's dark, but I mean, it's so true, even though it's made up. It's scary how true it sounds. It seems.
Totally. No, and it's fascinating to think about all the parallels to kind of the Murdochs and Fox News and even the Trump type families. But so this is what it said. Explain what AI is to Logan Roy from Succession in ChatGPT. It says, sure, I'll give it a shot. AI stands for artificial intelligence. Essentially, it's a type of computer program that can do things that would normally require human intelligence. For example, an AI program might be able to recognize faces in photos, translate text from one language to another, or even play complex games like chess or Go. And it goes on, with more boring things. The way AI works is by analyzing large data sets. But, a little bit meta here, asking AI what AI is. But again, I think it misses an opportunity to, speak to kind of the underlying opportunity for some light humor here. And I'm not funny, so I'm not gonna make an attempt to do that. But I think maybe saying something like, Logan Roy, like, you better pay attention to this revolution or it's going to eat your lunch, Buster, something along
Yeah,
those lines.
that's funny.
Well, thank you for.
Do you think only humans can be funny?
That's a great question. I do think that AI has the capacity to be funny, but it's all in the eye of the beholder, right? And so, it's one of the real pitfalls, I think, of AI is its lack of ability to really understand context. So, for example, like sarcasm is something that it really struggles with. Like, it cannot tell the tone,
Yes,
of.
because it's not, it's subjective.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, perfect. So, my next question is, AI has been around for a while, um, but then it's became super hyped, and my TikTok's all about AI. So, why do you think it's so hyped nowadays?
Yeah, I mean, I think really a lot of this hype is associated with a certain subset of AI called generative AI. And generative AI is really creating something new from scratch. And so ChatGPT is the most common example and kind of application of this, where it's a text to text model. So you input text and then it spits out text, whether that is, a blog post or even code or, but there's also many other types of generative AI, text to image models, text to video, and that's really what we're focused on at Purposely. Um, but it's this idea that, with a text to image model like DALL-E or Stable Diffusion or Midjourney, you're creating an image that did not previously exist, which is really wild to think about. And of course, there's millions of data points that are influencing the creation of that on the input. But, generative AI, I think, really has been popularized most by OpenAI, um, which is owned in large part by Microsoft, but they, as well as kind of Stable Diffusion, Midjourney, I'd say in mid to late 2022 last year, started releasing these large language models, and the public reception was massive, and I think it surprised everyone, kind of how viral these tools and technology went. But it's for good reason. It really is incredible to think about what is possible and this, the power and the capabilities of these tools. And the last thing I'd say about why is there so much hype now is I do think the context is always important, right? And so in the context of technological innovation, couple things. One, like if you compare it to what else was happening around the time in 2022, the other kind of big hypey tech innovations was Web3, cryptocurrency, right? NFTs. That had a big crash related to, Sam Bankman-Fried and others. And so that really kind of fell off in large part. And I think it created a vacuum for something else to fill its place. And I think so, to me, that's a big reason why AI also exploded, is because there was kind of a vacuum there. And, the last thing I'll say about that is AI has been building up for decades, and that's one of the reasons why when you compare it to something like Web3 and crypto, which is much newer phenomenon, as of only the past couple kind of years, AI, there's been research building up. And Scott Galloway is a overlap. Like we both have, I know you taught right at section 4, or what did
I
you?
was a teaching assistant.
Very cool. I want to hear more about that, but I'm a big fan of Scott Galloway, and he cites this trend that in AI, there's 20 years of scientific papers that are, peer-reviewed scientific papers that have been building up steadily over 20 years. And that really laid the foundation and the groundwork for this AI revolution that we're experiencing now.
Yeah, that's interesting. And I love the idea that it's mature. Obviously, we also have GPT-4, so the technology has evolved as well. And it's interesting to think as a maturity, an industry that really reached maturity to reach the public, the massive audience. But so tell me a little bit, you mentioned Purposely. How did your background, because we have a similar background, all right,
Yeah.
agencies and then tech. Uh, how was this evolution? What was the insight and what happened for you to understand that this is the next move or to fall in love with the problem?
Yeah, I love it. So I think I've been working in digital media strategy and focused on digital advertising for most of my career of 11 years. You mentioned some of the brands and organizations I've worked with. Um, and, you know, when you think about digital ad platforms like Facebook ads, Google ads, whether it's YouTube or search advertising, which is one of the first forms of digital ads, AI has really been interlinked to digital advertising from almost the very beginning. You know, it's always been a big part of it. Um, and so I was leveraging
That
these.
just
Yeah,
so I get it clearly to put more color in it. You mean when we do a lookalike audience, or when we
exactly.
understand your interests and
Hmm.
what you show in the timeline and stuff like that, right?
Absolutely. And when you think about really like the history and trajectory of AI in marketing, it started the first component that was really automated away through AI was bidding. So if you've done any, and for those who are listening, any SEM, right, search engine marketing with Google search, the way it works is you're bidding on keywords, right? And you're entering into an auction against other advertisers and you're bidding for the opportunity to place your ad at the top of the search results. And so you literally enter a in a cost amount, a price, $2.99 for the word shoes if you're a shoe brand, or $7.99 if you want to bid on the term Nike, right? And actually compete against Nike and try to show up for those queries. And that used to be all manual. Like I literally remember 10, even,
I did it as well.
right? And in Amazon
I
ads,
remember when they launched the editor, I was so happy because I didn't have to like copy a spreadsheet to the platform anymore.
totally, the power editor, so you could bulk edit. Yeah. 100%. And it's still manual, honestly, in a lot of these newer ad platforms. I mean, Amazon ads is much newer and it functions the same way, bidding on keywords. And so, a lot of these PPC based platforms, pay per click, um, start manual, but then bidding became automated. And in my view, that was really one of the first real automations with AI, where now no longer as a marketer do you have to set bids on each individual keyword, which is so painstaking, as we say, right? And so it's that became automated away. The next big thing was targeting, and you alluded to this with lookalike audiences, but really all forms of targeting are now largely automated. On Facebook ads, you may have heard that oftentimes marketers say that a best practice is literally just to use a broad audience and not even specify even demographic attributes like age and gender. Just do broad open targeting and let the algorithm find your customers for you. And
That's crazy. But based on interests or not even that.
not even that. I mean, literally, I've read a lot, and I've seen success with this too. I mean, it obviously depends on the conditions, right? The brand and the goal and all the other factors, but there are certainly use cases where broad targeting and letting the algorithm do its thing, when you're leveraging extremely powerful algorithms like Facebook and TikTok, and you have
It's
so much data.
crazy. It's crazy as a consumer, right? To think about it, because uh, in the past there was someone thinking about targeting me for some reason. At first was demographic, and then it stopped making sense because we don't buy things according to our geography, age, and gender, or
Right.
any other. And then interests. All right. And now it's like an algorithm will know what you want to buy and display it to you. I mean, in the future, should it buy itself in like uh, projecting it forward? Maybe in the future, my iPhone will know what I want.
Yeah, totally. And I think what you're also alluding to, sorry, I'm going to just close the window here because there's some planes in the background. What you're alluding to is privacy, right? And I think that's a really
True.
important thing to cover as well, because that has been a big tectonic shift in the digital marketing landscape over the past few years, is more of a crackdown on privacy for good reason, right? Like as consumers, like we should retain our right to privacy. So both on the public and private sectors, in the public sector, you have GDPR in Europe, and in California, they have CCPA, which are these laws. And in the private sector, you have iOS 14, which is Apple's forced changes to the ask app not to track prompt, right? And so all of this led to, from an advertiser standpoint, data deprecation and signal loss. And so the targeting algorithms actually lost effectiveness because of that.
True. Yeah, that's our
Um,
thesis.
I'm
We'll
sorry.
see an increase in brand marketing spending because
Totally.
yeah, we'll need the client to be or the consumer to be more ready to purchase by the time they have the need because you won't be able to know everything you knew about them to target them. Anyways, tell me about Purposely because we are divaguing here.
Yeah, sorry, but I think some of these are very interrelated. And just to kind of say one other thing about one of your last questions about the insight that I had, because this really led to what I'm doing at Purposely. During my time working in digital marketing at agencies for 10, 11 years, I experienced a number of pain points that all largely came back to this idea of making decisions with guesswork and with my gut rather than based on data. And that really frustrated me, and sure, there's always been a lot of data out there, Google Analytics, and you get a lot of data from these ad platforms, but it was never really easy enough to bring it to bear and to leverage it and make decisions and act on it super seamlessly in all of my workflows, right? You have to download spreadsheets from all the different platforms. You have to compile the data together, run pivot tables, analyze it. Then you have to pull out an insight and then apply. So that it really frustrated me. And often because that was so cumbersome and time consuming, marketers half the time just say, screw it, let's go with this. I'm going to go with my gut because I know anyway. And it's important to go with the gut is very important. But I was frustrated that it wasn't easy enough to bring data to bear. So that is largely what we're solving for at Purposely, is to make it easier to make data-driven decisions, specifically in the realm of creative. And so that's the text and the visual content, the ad content, right? And so that really is kind of the underlying pain point and problem area that I experienced firsthand that inspired me to, on my entrepreneurial journey. I started a services business before Purposely and had paying clients and grew it to meaningful revenue. It was kind of an ad agency model, but I always planned to productize services and build software. And that's what we're doing at Purposely. We're well on our way there. And essentially what we do at a high level is help advertisers and their agencies optimize and automate creative using data rather than guesswork and using AI.
Nice. That's so important. And uh, what I love every time we talk is that we solve the same problem in different ways because we are
Yeah.
tracking the result of it. But what I do love about it is also uh, that obviously we can track in real time and evolve stuff that we could never before. So
Mhm.
it's a new age for marketing, I think, and
Absolutely.
it fits the word today because everyone's looking for effectiveness.
Yes.
Let me
Absolutely.
just turn off the AC. I think that's what's making the noise.
Sure. And I'll wait.
So I'm back. So Alex, walk me through what changes you are seeing in creativity and advertising currently, because it was very gut oriented. Now it's maybe more data oriented.
Hmm.
Uh, is it becoming more boring, or is it more effective? What are you seeing?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question about boring or more effective. I mean, I think ultimately, when you bring more data to bear, you're going to ultimately improve performance, I believe. Now, it matters what type of data you bring, right? Because there are absolutely biases in any model, right? And in AI models, there's a phrase garbage in, garbage out. So if you put bad data into the model, then bad data will come out as well. So it's not simple, and the data quality certainly matters, but assuming that you have strong data quality, and that you can trust your data, that by using that in your decision making moving forward will lead to better results. Now, um, I think when you take kind of like the pain points that I was experiencing firsthand, and an example of this, of like making gut decisions that I experienced, was like, we have this budget for a client, and we had to allocate it accordingly. And sometimes we didn't have enough time to go in and research all the different channels and the performance by channel. And so we just say, all right, we have 100K, let's do 20K here, 30K there, right? 50K there. And it's kind of crazy because that's a lot of money to just be, but that's literally how it works, you know? And so when you think about it from a creative standpoint, there's a lot of similar situations where, like, let's do this message because that's what's going to resonate, or we have some, a little bit of insight that that's what worked, but you don't actually have, you're not analyzing hard data from an experiment that in your A/B test, creative of people's faces perform better than the landscape, and so therefore, so that, I think, is happening more now with AI tools. It's lowers the bar to bring data to bear and to incorporate it into your workflows and decision making. And it's really kind of, when you think about AI, it's kind of that data driven decisions on steroids, because instead of just looking at a data set and pulling out a human insight and making a decision on it, you're automating that over and over and over again, right? And when you think about AI at a high level, one of the kind of definitions or ways to think about what it is really just statistics at a basic level. It's nothing more complicated than statistics, but it's just
Exactly.
statistics multiple times. It's statistics on statistics on statistics, right? Running it over and over and over
It
again.
sounds more complex than what it actually is when you start
Yes,
crafting algorithms. It's like, all
absolutely.
right, that decision, I know how to make that decision. And I'm not even a data scientist.
Yeah, totally.
Word is
Statistician.
impossible for foreigners.
I love it.
Ale-
Statistician. That's good.
how is it?
Well, no, I was just thinking maybe there should be a short form,
Oh, yeah,
statistician.
status. Alex, what are the biggest? So let's, something I wanted to ask before is, uh, I think maybe you can mute yourself because I'm
Yes.
listening to myself. I'm hearing myself. So I know that for branding, it's consistency is very important, because people, they create bonds with the brands that they know what they mean, and this familiarity leads to more loyalty and recurrent purchase and a more efficient uh, communication spend. But when you test one thing, like, is a picture of a house better than a person and stuff like that, it's easy to get lost on testing what ad performs better in terms of clicks, but not in the long run, or not in this consistency. Is there a way for us to keep a strong brand and test multiple things?
I love that question. And honestly, I'm curious what your response is to that, Guta, because I think you might, in the realm of kind of branding and brand consistency, I think you're absolutely more the expert on this than I am. But I think the short answer I'd say is yes. It's not necessarily easy, and there are always trade-offs, right? But I agree with everything you're saying. It's extremely important to have brand consistency. Otherwise, your target consumers and customers won't be able to recognize you and trust you as a brand. And so, yeah, I think there are ways to do that. And, I think that's, again, where these AI tools can help, because, one of the things that we're really starting to play around with at Purposely in the realm of generative AI is training these models to be more brand consistent, right? So if anyone in the audience listening to this has probably played around with ChatGPT a little bit, but if you've played with DALL-E 2 or any of the text to image models, you might know that faces and hands don't always turn out well, right? Like if you try to generate an image with a human face, it's like weird. The eyes, and the hands like might have 6 fingers, and it's just like it's not there yet. It still has a ways to go. The same is true with brand elements. Like it doesn't handle logos very well. And if you think about brand guidelines, like for Coca-Cola, they're super specific. The words
Super specific, yeah.
that you can and can't use, the tone, the phrasing, the look and
And
the feel.
there's stuff more broad, like itself references. So the shape of stuff is the shape of the bottle and stuff like that. That's super subtle.
Mm-hmm. So I think we're working on this is using generative AI to streamline creative processes, right, and make it more efficient, but also do it in a way that is still brand consistent. And so it's a ways off for that specific capability, but I think it's moving in that direction. But I'm curious what you think. How would you answer that question?
Yeah. I once played around with an algorithm when I was back in services, running my agency that
Mm-hmm.
we were doing branding. And we wanted it to know what logo would be approved by the client. So we uploaded every logo that was ever approved. And then we started comparing with these other logos, and the AI would say this was made by the agency, this was not. And it was learning what logos were made by us. I mean, it was a joke, but maybe there's some way to upload and to train the model in the brand ecosystem. I mean, if we upload everything Coca-Cola ever created, then it might know if this looks like Coca-Cola or not. And then uh, we can train the model and then ask it to review if it's consistent, and then only test communication that is consistent, maybe.
Interesting. Yeah.
Or maybe the brand guidelines that are now, a brand book is now done for an agency to interpret. It might be done in the future for AI to interpret. Just
Yeah.
like now we write blogs for Google algorithm, right? So we
Mm-hmm.
might
Mm-hmm.
design logos to AI to interpret, to Purposely to interpret, maybe.
Well, yeah, absolutely. And I think it's it's amazing how much of a transformation this is. And I'm sure if anyone's listening to this, they're aware of just how large the implications are. But I think, this AI transformation is really a platform shift unlike anything we've seen since probably the mobile phone and mobile applications. I mean, I would even go as far as to say as this is on the level of the telephone replacing the telegraph, or even the automobile replacing the horse and buggy. I mean, this is going to absolutely transform communication as we know it, because people are plugging in these inputs into machines to write their blog posts and to create their content and make their videos and even code their applications and even paint and create music. And that is scary, you know, when we get to that level of artificial music and art. And I don't want to get too sidetracked on that. I think that's like a whole nother podcast episode, the ethics of that. But
The
I will
ethics, yes.
I will also say, and just kind of caveat, that this is not a black or white scenario. And I absolutely think the role of humans is extremely paramount here. And the primary role of humans here is to interpret the context, right? That the AI is not always good at doing, whether it's being sarcastic or not. And
Interesting. Going back to Logan Roy and the
yeah,
beginning of our podcast.
totally. And, you know, I was trying to think of examples here. There's a lot of them, but there's a lot of words that have multiple meanings, right? And so one example, I don't know if this is the best one, but like the word patient refers to being patient, right? And waiting. And then it also refers to a patient in a hospital, right? And someone who's and so it's like, there's countless examples of that where like the AI doesn't always can't differentiate that based on, I mean, it's getting better at it, and so I think, you know, there's always going to be a role for humans in
I
this. And
agree. I agree. I think we always found ways to be human. So people always say, oh, accountants before uh, Microsoft Excel would like run every number. Um, but I do think there is maybe another type of human input, which is the strategy. Because AI can only look back. I mean, obviously it can predict stuff, but predict based on how it was.
mhm,
So uh, I think the geniuses of marketing is when you can really connect the need of consumers and really interpret culture and what people are feeling and thinking and where the world's going, and cross that with the truth to your brand, to your company, to the vision for your future that lies inside management and inside the company culture, and to understand what your consumer competitors are not saying and not telling, and how can you differentiate. And I don't think I saw a potential yet for AI to substitute this human insight of crossing all of this and saying our communication will be this is our concept, this is what our brand means, and this is what we are communicating. So I think that it's still human, and then doing every piece of communication, I think then AI is better than us already.
absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, I think the human role, there will always be a human role here. And what the way you're saying to interpret the culture, the zeitgeist, right? I love that word. It's like
Exactly.
the zeitgeist. A machine can't understand zeitgeist and I don't think it maybe never will be able to in the same way that humans do. And that's encouraging to me, you know, and I think this is something that we believe at Purposely, and hopefully the rest of the industry in AI believes too. And I've heard this from Sam Altman, from OpenAI, and other leaders generally agree that, but we believe that like we don't want to replace any human. We don't want to automate away anyone's job, a designer, a creative director, a copywriter. And a lot of people question that and say, well, isn't that exactly what's happening? But really, we see this much more as augmentation and empowering rather than replacing and fully automating. You know, what we want to do is automate away the rote, annoying, painstaking tasks to open up space and time for more creative and strategic work, exactly like you're saying. And that, I think, is the optimal model here.
And that's how technologies always worked.
Yeah.
I mean, we can even design and creative direction. We had to paint stuff with I didn't I'm younger than that, but people would paint the art, I mean of every ad and
Yeah.
stuff like that, which is
The
crazy.
posters and stuff. from like the
posters. Yeah,
60s and 70s. Yeah.
yeah, Mad Men style. Uh, uh, but I imagine people often think AI will make humans less creative, and I
Mm,
know you disagree. So how do you see AI helping digital advertisers be more creative?
I love this. So, yeah, for this question, I'm going to get a little personal here and just shed some light into my background and, you know, deeper passions and motivations. I, in college, studied political science major, but film and media minor. And I was really obsessed with documentary film and thought for a while that I wanted to become a documentary filmmaker. And I made a number of short films. The most prominent one was
I
shot.
didn't know that.
Yeah, fun fact. It was shot in Ghana. Partly is the story of, really, I call her my second mother in a way, who helped raise my brother and I while my real mother was working in a corporate law job and not taking time off. And anyway, but film and video editing, I still love video editing. I still make little videos of ski trips I take or things like that. And I really, when this generative AI revolution started happening in the fall of 2022, about 8 months ago, I got super excited because I felt that there are more opportunities to be creative. And ultimately, I believe that it just lowers the bar to creativity, right? So when I go in and make a video from a trip, that's a lot of work, right? And if anyone out there who knows what I'm talking about, whether it's video editing or Photoshop or music creation and production, any list goes on, there's a lot of work to get a project set up, import all your media, edit it down. Why? And it's just, there's a ton of painstaking, rote, annoying tasks that go along with that. So in the video editing example, I haven't actually used this product much, but I've heard great things. It's called Descript. It's an AI powered video editing app. And instead of having to scrub and look through a bunch of video content to find the clip you want, and this is for podcast editing too, you should probably, if you're not using this
I
yet,
should try it. Yeah.
check it out. Descript. A lot of podcast hosts use it. You can you can search for what you're looking for, a keyword, and it will just automatically go to those clips, and then boom, you have them. So it's
Oh
like,
my God, that's great.
it speeds up the processes. And by saving, that much time with those annoying tasks that no one wants to do, you have more time to think strategically and creatively, and like, what do we want the story to be, and what is the arc here? And so I really am a believer that it lowers the bar to create, and more people who might have otherwise, everyone is creative at some level, right? I really believe that. But now it's just making it easier for more people to be more creative more of the time.
Yeah, that's awesome. And even TikTok, we are huge on TikTok here at Purple Metrics in Brazil, and they really get they the way they. I mean, if you move the bar when editing a video, they cut it exactly when the music is like beating. I don't know how to explain it, but
Mm-hmm.
it
They
just
align it
it
with the beat.
flows.
Yeah.
They align it, it flows, it flow. So yeah, so it's awesome. And but you made a point which I love, is that what is essentially human. And I think with the AI growing, the main discussion that we are having in marketing, at least, is what is essentially human. And creativity, insight, strategy, creating something exciting and new. I don't think an AI can create a campaign that really mixes with culture. You know, that those commercials, those ads that everyone repeats, that's really genius, because it touches something that's really in the zeitgeist. So I think that's essentially human. And
Absolutely.
yeah, we'll
Like
probably
the Nike
still
shirt
dig
you're wearing,
into.
right?
I am wearing a Nike shirt. Yeah, I'm a Nike fan.
I
What
love
can I
Nike.
say?
I
I love
Me
Nike
too.
too.
it's an amazing brand. And when you think about just their tagline is so genius, just do it. Right. And this goes back to brain.
I don't think AI could do it.
No way. Because
No
it's
way.
so simple, but it's also so complex on so many levels. If you ask 10 people what just do it means to them, I would bet that you get at least 5 to 10 different answers,
That's the
And
beauty of it.
exactly.
Yeah, and then but maybe AI could scrape through athletes to find out which new athletes have a fit with the brand, maybe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Or, stuff like that.
totally.
Yeah.
And that's, I mean, one of the things that we're doing, and not to be too salesy on purposely here, but it's since it's relevant, our beta product right now connects your advertiser account, so Facebook ads account, to Purposely, and automatically ingests all the historical data and automatically crunches the numbers to analyze, both from a text and visual standpoint, which components perform the best, right? So, for example, from all of your images and videos in the past, ads with human faces and green grass perform 30% better, and their copy with the words today and benefits perform better. So you might want to focus that on that in the future. And where we're going with that is integrating generative AI to be able to automate some of those components, not the entire thing. But yeah, again,
That's super cool, and that feeds the marketing team.
mm-hmm,
I mean, why do people like us more, or purchase more when we have this or that element? Maybe because our brand is about humanity and we didn't know,
mm-hmm,
stuff like that. But then a
mm-hmm,
human can like do the last mile of the thinking if they
totally,
have the right data.
absolutely. And I think there should always be human supervision, you know, uh,
Ah,
for
yeah, yeah,
most
sure, sure.
things. So yeah.
Agreed. So for us, like last question, let's try
Mm-hmm,
to bullet points where marketing will be in 10 years from now, or maybe in the
mm-hmm,
midterm future, with the impact of AI. So I think we'll be a lot more precise with data about what works and what doesn't work. Data
absolutely.
precision testing will be able to test a lot more stuff
Automated
creatively.
automated testing, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, content creation, honestly, and this is what we're seeing at the very beginning stages of with generative AI, is that content creation is being automated more and more. And that in 10 years, I don't think humans are going to be writing blog posts anymore, and
Great.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry to say it, but I think there will be other tasks that humans are doing that leverages the innate human ability to,
Also purchase a media.
yeah,
So
absolutely.
and what yeah. And
Media buying.
scraping through media buying, scraping through influencers, which one
Hmm.
has the best fit and stuff like that. And
Totally.
humans will be doing the strategic, uh, top creative
Exactly.
part of it,
High level,
high level.
campaign crafting and strategy. But yeah, I mean, it's all of the kind of iterative tasks and anything with repetitive work where you're doing it over and over again, where you have to analyze, to look at an image and say, what did this perform, good or bad? No human should go through that, when you can run it through an AI magic box and it spits out and just tells you exactly what did better or worse. And so yeah, I think all of this is going to be transformed. The other thing is, from more of a hardware standpoint, and this is not necessarily, I mean, I think your question was about the future of marketing in 10 years, right? Broadly
Yeah,
speaking.
but feel free to go
Yeah.
beyond. Yeah,
So it's not, outside of the realm of AI, you have to think about the physical realm and context as well. And I think we're going to continue to obviously see innovation in that space too. So we're going to have, the wearables are going to explode, right? Whether it's watches or headsets, with VR,
hmm
AR, and mixed reality I think Apple is actually coming out with a new XR mixed reality headset pretty soon. They delayed the launch of that, but that's going to be a game changer. I mean, there's been talk about an Apple car, like basically surfaces is a way to think about it for
True.
marketing. You
Yes,
know,
because the internet, quote unquote, was inside the computer, and then it was inside our phones, and then it's mixed in the world. So
Mhm.
we are mixing. That's what's happening. We are mixing things made by machines with things made by humans in our day-to-day content, hardware, information mixed with, like, in the reality, in the third dimension, in the real world, and not only to catch Pokemons.
Yeah, exactly.
Or maybe
Totally.
to watch a sports game.
Yeah,
Maybe there's information we'll know by these things that we'll be able to visualize, integrated with the experience of the sport.
absolutely. I mean, I think I forget what the stat is, but most people who watch sports now are doing it in a multi-screen experience. You know, they have their cell phone, they have their
Yes,
phones, they have maybe a tablet, and they have the TV on, right? So they're checking their scores, they're checking their bets, you know, and seeing how they're doing. And so it's
exactly.
really these multi-dimensional experiences that I think are going to continue to proliferate. But at the same time, there is a limit to that, right? Like there's only so many screens we can have before we start going crazy. And you know, when I'm a big believer in balance in general in life, but in also in work. And when I take time off, which I think is important, especially for entrepreneurs, because it's very hard for me to do, but I still try to do it, right? For my mental health and everything else. I try to just have time away from screens, you know, whether it's work or not work, right? Even if it's for fun and it's play, watching videos and screen time before you go to bed, like it's not healthy really, you know, and I don't know like scientifically why. I'm sure there are studies, but I can just feel it. And
Yes,
so I think it's really important to
definitely.
retain a balance.
And I think we will be reconnecting with our humanity in a different level. That's not about marketing, but I think religion is something that's a bit outdated. Obviously, we are seeing more radical religions come up, but we it wasn't important. And then now there's meditation and mindfulness and stuff like that. But it's stuff about the soul or whatever that I think,
Mm-hmm.
no matter what you believe, it's what makes us human. So we will probably see new ways to connect our humanity with us. Call it as you want, as you
Amen.
wish. Yeah. I mean, but it's exciting to live in a time where we can reinvent how marketing is done. I love it.
Absolutely. It's so exciting. Guta, I would rather be nowhere else than with you kind of collaborating on how we're going to shape the future of marketing, right?
Yeah, that's a nice way to end the podcast, I think.
Awesome.
Final thoughts, other than go check Purposely.ai.
No, yeah, you can check us out Purposely.ai. We're on Twitter. I got working with our intern and we're putting some humor into the chat GPT marketing experience. So he's, you know, trying to put some jokes out
David.
there around marketing and AI. So I think it's purposely_AI on Twitter. But yeah, check us out. Happy to help if anyone wants to chat. And Guta, thank you so much for this opportunity. And also go check out Purple Metrics. You're working on something really cool as well.
Thank you. It was great.